Hey, everybody. Looks like we're live on YouTube again. Hope you're all having a good day. I'm going to continue talking about this word and what it meant to our forefathers and why they used it. So from the last talk, which I didn't finish, just too much reading for me that night, this gentleman says, could it be that liberty is what is given to British sailors on shore leave? That could be a definition. That could be a definition, without a doubt. But is that what liberty meant to our forefathers? So I'm going to pick up reading here. This will be backtrack just a little bit. If you want to help your fellow man, then be a Samaritan instead of those who walk by with excuses or assume it's someone else's job. But none of this works without changing ourselves first. We weren't always like this, and we've allowed ourselves to be changed. I believe change is good if it is good change. Think about this for a minute. You must answer these questions. Do you trust your neighbors? Do you trust people in your community? Do you trust most people in your state? Do you trust most of the people in your country? Think about that. Do you? Would you give your neighbor the key to your house while you're on vacation? Things like that. Stranger down the street. Trust them with what, you ask? Do you trust them to live responsibly with less rules and less laws, that they would make responsible decisions and restrain themselves? Do you trust that they will begin to participate in this government more, in an education of their children, in the needs of the community, to where we don't need all these bureaucratic managers doing it for us because we are doing it? I'm sorry. Back up. Participate in government more, in the education of their children, in the needs of the community, to where we don't need all these bureaucrats, managers doing it for us because people are doing it for themselves. Well, you see, this was never set up for our representatives to be doing what they're doing. Legislative law, bylaw, statutes, acts, rules, regulations, codes, that's for commerce and government. That's to regulate commerce and government, not to be applied to we the people. We the people own the government, and we the people have not been assembling. So I talked about that in a previous video. So we're going word by word until we unslave America and the world. So let's see. Do you believe that our institutions like nonprofits and religious organizations can be trusted to fill voids and gaps where government currently exists? This is a bar attorney. He's thinking like a bar attorney. I think you should read these questions again and answer them out loud to yourself, because we used to do all the above without need for government to do it for us. Why? Because we trusted each other, even strangers. Correction. Because we owned our authority. And we assembled for judicial and legislative law. And representatives from each land jurisdiction within a county would be represented in the county. The county representatives would be selected for state assembly. This is how all the people get heard. So you don't want chlorine in your water? people end it. Why? Because we make the law. These kind of things. So city services aren't right. Trash isn't getting picked up on time. Landfills not being handled properly. Sewage treatment plants not being maintained properly. These are things that we, the people, don't have to complain about. Don't have to ask slavishly for our servants to do their duty. We create the law, the highest law. All right, back to reading. So why? Because we trusted each other, even strangers, to manage themselves first and live responsibly. We then trusted that they cared about their community and the safety of the community, that they would act and watch when needed. How many of you could ride your bike all over the place when you were young, allowed to go to the park without an adult, and were free to walk to and from school without your parent? This was America 20 to 30 years ago, and it is because of trust, and it is because of trust that largely doesn't exist. We don't trust each other, and because we don't trust each other, this has triggered the extremes in our political worlds, where we line up on sides, driven primarily by the lack of trust in the behavior of other human beings. That's because we have not been able to hold our servants accountable, because our judicial has been usurped by British foreign agents, a private entity known as the Bar. British Accredited Registry, I believe is what it is. Treasonous rats. Specifically on social issues, it becomes a battle of worldviews where trust or lack thereof becomes the weapon that justifies more law, more rules, more government by both the conservative and liberal ends of the spectrum. And as a result, we lost our liberty. Liberty requires trust in democratic/republic. See, bar attorney, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. Regarding public, nowhere in our constitutions do I find the word democracy. Oh my goodness. It is the single most important ingredient. So this is where we must work on ourselves first. You must also realize when other people are answering those same questions I listed above, that you, whom probably believe yourself to be responsible and trustworthy, are thinking the same horrific thoughts about you as you are about them. Thus, we are our own problem, and it starts with trust and responsible behavior put on a constant display and exercised, not deferred. Well, how about integrity, honesty, virtue? Reasons to have trust in people, because they have morality. All right. The second prong to take back our liberty is through education. That's a fact. We create our future citizens and a trustworthy community, state, and nation by the job we do training our children in these principles. How are we training our children? How we are training our children is a small microcosm of the larger problem that I've explained above with adults. We don't trust our children or adolescents in the ways they need us to, so we tend to manage every minute of their school day and are reactionary in a punitive way to human mistakes, failures, and sins. Despite all evidence to the contrary on the damaging effects of zero tolerance policies, our public schools still utilize zero tolerance instead of case-by-case judgment, teachable moments, higher expectations on responsible actions, and flexibility to practice responsible behavior in a safe, managed environment we've created for the purposes of developing and shaping responsible citizens. All right, now, any of you are following me, you know, reading and writing are two of my least favorite things. And I had not read this article when I did the previous video. I had scanned through it, found a few things that I thought were worthy of sharing, and things that would be wrong, I'll give narrative. If I feel that, in my opinion or in my knowledge, they are wrong, I'm calling them out. This liberty is a very important word, what it meant to our forefathers. All right. I hear complaint after complaint from teachers and administrators about helicopter parents or aggressive parents that react in school disciplines their child. And then I hear the same concerns about the parents on the other end that do not partner with the school or discipline at home and are not involved at all. Once again, it circles back to the fact we don't trust each other, so we create rules, policies to force these issues. And then the enraged parents who were responsible for demanding more rules and policies to protect their children from the absent parent and the undisciplined children react when those rules and policies, mainly due to zero tolerance, are used on their own children. It comes down to trust. My parents didn't care if my principal disciplined me because they trusted them, knew them to be fair and judicious, and saw value in those teachable moments from others in our community. In 2017, and as long as there is zero tolerance and a blind obedience to rules without reason, I adamantly react like one of the enraged parents I describe above. We need to be willing as adults to take the first step in dismantling these obstacles to teaching and modeling responsibility for our children. We need to stop scheduling every minute of school day, and our kids need more free time, more student-directed learning and interactive, more explanation. Our governments need to trust our local public schools and get out of the way, stop scheduling every minute of our educators' time, and remove obstacles impending on teachers' ability to teach, including the important hidden curriculum of being a responsible and trustworthy citizen. Allow our children and teachers liberty by removing the rules and policies that inhibit the exercise and practice of liberty. I agree with Barbara Caloraso when she said, children have a difficult time becoming responsible, resourceful, and resilient if they are controlled, manipulated, and made to mind, robbed of their autonomy, and denied opportunities to make choices and mistakes. They cannot develop a sense of inner discipline if all control comes from the outside. This applies to adults too. And reread her quote by inserting adults. So you see, with the assemblies and we the people making the laws, we don't have this issue. We don't have the chaos. We deal with everything that's a problem for us. And in today's world, slave land, clown land, bar land, everything's upside down. Our children are taught that our lowest authority, federal, is the highest. Oh, yeah, you got to be fearing the FBI and the CIA, the DEA, all this stuff. Hooey. That is low-level bureaucracy. That is below state power. State power comes from a compact of the Constitution. Above the Constitution, the state's Constitution, is the sheriff. The sheriff is not in the Constitution. The sheriff is above the Constitution, is an elected law enforcer, peace officer, has many duties. Primary duty is maintaining the peace. There needs to be balanced priority shift in education delivery to put more of an emphasis on civic responsibility, Bill of Rights, constitutional government. Very good, Mr. Bar Attorney. Back to reading. At the same time, we need to place a greater responsibility on our adolescents to appreciate work, money, time management, and goals. We need to strengthen our emphasis on classics of literature and the lessons they teach. Our schools need to meet the needs of community and not demand sameness and uniformity, even within a local school district. The needs of Vincent or Columbia, Alabama is not the same as the needs of families in Oak Mountain. We must think how we view our schools, and to fix our community issues must take a lot of our approaches back to some basics to solve these problems. So to solve community deficits in the areas of poverty, broken homes, and adults that lack some of the prerequisite skills of personal responsibility, then our schools in those areas become a natural beacon to offer and provide those needs. This occurs through collaborations and local resources, local employers, local churches, local leaders. Local. Not crazy, local in your area. The third prong of restoring our liberty is through the political leadership we vote for and the requirements that we put on them to make less rules and deconstruct those policies and rules that inhibit that exercise of liberty in responsible ways. All right, this is slave talk. That's slave talk. We have all power. We need a larger collaborative relationship between non-government community leaders. Non-government community leaders and organizations to where, you see, we are the government, people. We are. We own it. It's our business. We need a larger collaborative relationship between non-government community leaders and organizers to where responsibilities are shared and shifted away from government, away from legislators. Actually, we just control the legislators. Government is to be accountable and responsive, and it's not. And the bar has usurped our judicial and our grand juries, our assemblies, our knowledge of what to do and how to do it has all been tucked away very neatly over decades and decades and generations of manipulation through the education system and through placement of these treasonous rats in virtually every aspect of our society as gatekeepers and enforcers of oppression and suppression, and basically just stealing and raping you blind from the day you're born until the day you die. All right, government is force no matter how you slice it, and free people exercising liberty in their own lives and community negates the need for a lot of government. So how we live our individual lives determines how much government we deserve. It starts with personal responsibility and how we exercise liberty. It then extends to our expectations of how others in our community exercise their liberty and placing demands on them that they do so responsibly. It can't be by threat of governmental violence, though. We must abandon the Bill Clinton rule of politics that our society adopted in 1998, to where a political private life is somehow not a reflection of the job they would do for the public. I believe the kinds of leaders we've had since 1998 has shown us that this policy is lacking, and who are as a father, mother, husband, wife, employer, employee, and personal morals, ethics is paramount to the kind of leader one would be for people she doesn't know and has no connection or natural loyalty to or for. The bar must be raised, and the first example of how to exercise responsible liberty must be set by our elected officials. Wrong. The bar must be abrogated, and we have to hold our servants to account. They are not our leaders. Liberty may have been forgotten and may have been lost, but the government of the people, by the people, and for the people is still intact, and therefore liberty can be found and it can be remembered. Very good, Mr. Bar Attorney. We still have the broad concepts of freedom, but let us now commit to remembering, exercising, reinstating the principles of liberty. It is through living responsibly and finding trust in one another that we can get to the crux of what lies at the heart of all our problems in the community, state, and county. Yes, with our assemblies. Problems do have a source, and we've been misidentifying all society's problems. This extends to our healthcare issues, economic concerns. Thank Rockefeller for that. The sheer amount we are spending on compliance and force to control the behavior of our fellow citizens. Trust is at the root of our problems. If we return to a common value of doing what you say and having your word mean something, then wouldn't those around you trust you? What if others committed to living this way? Would you start trusting them? This is why I believe trust is the single most important ingredient to liberty. Are we really that different from Moultrie, Jasper, and the other revolutionaries that first waved the flag of liberty? No. They wanted to govern themselves, didn't want to be middle managed to death, and desired to pursue happiness without somebody in London telling them how to do that. Are we not the same people even today, regardless of religion, color, creed, etc.? Do we not crave liberty? So let's do what you say and say what you mean. Let's regain each other's trust. Let us raise that liberty flag once again as a symbol of our commitment to restart, reinvigorate, and restore the principles of personal governments, responsibility, and respect. We need to embrace the liberty flag as our reminder of the difference between liberty and freedom, and be that example to our community and state. Let Alabama be the example for the rest of the country and show that we, the people, restored liberty to ourselves and did so in a free, peaceful manner during the election of 2018 and beyond. We rise together as one. Well, it's not going to happen by elections. Doesn't matter who we elect in there. The system is against us. It has been for a long time. So this word liberty, like all words, can have many definitions. All depends on the context. We're interested in the context of our forefathers. And I do believe I covered that well. So this fella commented, could it be that liberty is what is given to British sailors on shore leave? Well, what can we find out about that? Come on. I need smaller fingers on this little device. All right. So we're going. Dictionaries. Libertine. Below are articles of the following dictionary. Easton's Bible Dictionary. Libertine. Found only. Act 6:9. One who once had been a slave, but who had been set at liberty, or the child of such person. In this case, the name probably donates those descendants of Jews who had carried captives to Rome as prisoners of war by Pompey and other Roman generals in the Syrian wars, and had afterwards been liberated. In AD 19, these manumitted Jews were banished from Rome. Many of them found their way to Jerusalem and there established a synagogue. All right, now, so this brings us to a word, hedonism, Hedonism. The doctrine that pleasure or happiness is the highest good. Devotion to pleasure as a way of life. The later Roman emperors were notorious for their hedonism. Other words for hedonism: sensationalism, libertinism, debauchery, disposition, carousal. So, see if this takes me somewhere. Debauchery. Excessive indulgence in sensual pleasures, intemperance. Seduction from duty, allegiance, or virtue. So you see, liberty means something different to a British sailor or slave who's been given liberty and out for debauchery and self-pleasure. I don't see this discussing respect for other people, the pleasures of the self, not the community, not the whole. So what liberty meant to our forefathers is not what we have been taught. We have liberty synonymous with freedom, and that's not the way it is. Freedom means you are not in prison. You're not in jail. You're not in bondage. You are not kept. You're not a slave. You can move about freely. However, you can be oppressed. You can be restricted. Rules, regulations, codes, statutes, acts get applied on you that don't belong because of treasonous rats that have usurped the just authority granted to them. So they need to be held accountable. And we do that through our grand juries. We do that through our assemblies. And we do this all with our sheriff. So the assemblies, everyone, every adult can be an assemblyman. Every able body can be the militia. Any adult can join the jury pool, the grand jury pool. So I hope that brings a little bit of clarification to Liberty. I was going to let it go and move on to the next word. But when that comment came in from the YouTube video, after all I explained, guy wants to ask a slavish question. So I love y'all. Hope you have a great day. We'll be back again. Peace.